I know I intended it to be like an animated like TV show series, but with the comic book, there were things in there that were brought into it that I never really would have expected. And I do like, appreciate that a lot. Yeah.
Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, the show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. Today on the show, we have writer Hunter Reese joining us, and we talk about how all of us somehow live that superhero life by being creators, how we all draw inspiration from our earliest influences, and why capturing an audience is your first step to success. All of this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. Oh, rad. What got you to start making comics so young, especially, too?
Yeah. Well, I've been a fan of comic books ever since, I was a kid. I always found like superheroes, especially, very, very interesting as a kid. And even now, I grew up on like the Marvel movies, like Spider-Man. That was like my favorite growing up as a kid. And so I started with the movies, and then, once I found out that the movies were based on comics, that led me to becoming a fan of the comic books. So I would just read those whenever I could, and it eventually blossomed into me writing comics, because I had also been a real big fan of writing too. So I decided to, start writing my own. And that's what led me to start with, my comic books.
And like your book is very almost like Saturday morning Looney Tunes vibe, with like the characters you've chosen, the approach you're kind of going on. What kind of got you to choose that route when you were starting to make your own books? Was it like the style that captured you, or just that like that essence, I guess, that we don't see too many in too many comics by using animals and whatnot?
Well, Reese Rabbit, the main character of my book, it actually started back when I think I was like, I think 10, 11. And my parents and we went to Disneyland,
Oh, cool.
Disney World in Florida. And I wanted to make my own animal mascot character because, Walt Disney World, they have Mickey Mouse. So I
Hmm.
decided I was going to make my own animal character. And since my last name is Reese, that was going to be his name. And I needed an animal because, Mickey Mouse, rolls off the tongue. So I needed
Hmm.
something like that. And rabbit was just the first animal I thought of. So to answer your question about like what inspired like the Looney Tunes type character, I got to give a lot of credit to the artist who actually drew the comic. Her name is Inyit Awalia. And you see, I'm just the writer.
Hmm.
I don't draw. So I did the writing aspect, and she brought the character to actual life, like with the drawings. And I definitely gotta give her absolute credit for that because she really did a great job with the illustrations and bringing the comic to life. I couldn't have done it without her. So
Oh, dude, that's awesome. And it's
yeah,
cool that you're collaborating on a book already at like such a young age and having your own thing come to life and, working on a story that like it's kind of just, close to you in that sense too. And especially like the origins of it, you're going for that alliteration, you're pulling on not just nostalgia from, Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney and everything, but you're pulling on like your own childhood that actually kind of got you to do all of this. When you're figuring out stories, when you're talking about your writing path and everything, what were some of the first things that kind of captured you that made you decide that writing was the direction you wanted to go in?
Well, all my entire life, I've always had like a big imagination. I've always been like very creative in my creativity, and writing was just a great way for me to get it like out there, like putting it down and expressing myself. And it started off. I know I start. It started off with drawing because I remember when I was a kid, like maybe like 5, 6. What I would do is that I would just take like a sketchbook or a piece of paper and just start like drawing lines and whatnot. And then
Cool.
once it started to like look like something, I would like start, if it like started to like look like a shark or something, I would make it like into a shark. Yeah. And then once I had like the drawings of that, sometimes what I would do is take those like drawings and like turn them into characters, because I still have like a couple of sketchbooks where I've literally like seen these characters that I've drawn, and I thought, you know what, this character, it would look great in like a comic book or like in a story or something like that. So that's where I've gotten a lot of my inspiration from. And like I said earlier, like superheroes, like the superpowers genre, that's always been like my favorite. So I've definitely taken a lot of inspiration from that, and just gone from there. Yeah.
Man, and that's probably the coolest thing about like comics and superheroes in general is that they kind of enhance you so much at a young age and they kind of get you on the hook to get things going. And it's kind of great kind of talking to somebody who, they were introduced to comics right away, but they were introduced to the films and it shows like how far those movies kind of came along to bring people back into shops and to like bring people back into reading and finding some of those stories and really digging through them. I mean, you have years and years and years, decades of, Spider-Man stories and X-Men and Marvel and all that. But to be approaching it at a certain age and finding your favorite stuff, like what were some of your favorite, Spider-Man story arcs or like, creators that really helped you like kind of find the confidence that comics were the path to go on?
Well, when it comes to Spider-Man stories, I know one of the big ones that I like to take from was the Venom storyline, because
Oh, cool.
Venom is like one of my favorite Spider-Man villains.
Mhm.
Because I've always been a fan of like characters who are like the dark reflection of the hero. Like you can kind of say if the villain, I mean, if the hero had chosen the path of the villain or was
Mhm.
evil, that's who that character is. So that was that's one of the big ones that I like. Another would have to be um just any of the storylines when it comes to Spider-Man that involve him in high school, because of
Oh,
course I
cool.
think that's what made Spider-Man, as popular and as different as he was, because at the end of the day, Spider-Man, he was, a kid, a teenager. And even though he had like these powers, that didn't change the fact that, he still got like an aunt who's like struggling with the rent. He still got problems with like school and keeping up with that, all that stuff. And it was nice. That's what I resonated with. It was nice to have a superhero who his superpowers like didn't solve all of his problems. He still, got problems, because we all have problems. We all have things that we'd want to get done, and we definitely think superpowers could help out a lot with
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
yeah.
I love that. And it's one of the cool things about, characters like that is that you resonate so much with them. There's parts of them that you just find immediate attachment with. And it's things that kind of carry you on through life, and it helps you kind of get through certain very pivotal moments that you encounter. It helps you kind of carry through like dark times, through good times, and when things just feel really heavy. And we talk about being comic book creators and doing what we do. The whole process of it is kind of like living that superhero double identity thing. Like a lot of us do go to, school full time, or, work full time, and we spend our days there, and we go through issues. Our families, our close family members go through problems, and there's always something popping up in life. But at the end of the day, whether if you're going out and fighting crime as Spider-Man, or you're going to your room to make a comic and to like tell that story, that double life entendre is a balance. And it's kind of cool. We're not exactly saving lives and web swinging and everything, but what we do is equivalent to like we have to live this normal life, and then we have to go do what we need to do for ourselves and others outside of that too. So you are living that Spider-Man life in a sense by taking care of what you need to in reality, but then going into this insane thing that you can't even like. It's all imagination, and it's all like, for the most part, the process is very fun and very rewarding, but that reward is sometimes very little. Just like when like Spider-Man saves someone, that reward is very minuscule, other than he just helped somebody and he did it for his own wants and needs in that sense. Very selfless act. And that's what kind of making art is about. You're putting a story out there, you're putting yourself out there, and you're hoping it helps other people. Do you ever like kind of have that same like, maybe that's why you like some of those characters, is because it feels very close to you, close to home, and it kind of hits in that same spot for you?
Oh yes, absolutely. Because I know, growing up, comics and the films and superhero and the whole genre in general, that did help me through some hard times. Just when I was feeling down, I would just like, read or watch something, and it would help. Because sometimes I do think it is nice to like leave the world that you're in behind for a bit and focus on um, this new world inside comics. And because I also think that that's one of the great benefits of comic books, that sometimes if you're going through something, you can just, whatever you're going through, just put it down, put it away for a while, and just read about like these great characters and these great stories. And who knows, like sometimes they can even help inspire you and give you ideas that maybe wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So yeah.
Hmm. Dude, yeah, that's directly on the nose. I don't think that changes for anyone who's really involved with comics and understands the level of storytelling. There's like Grant Morrison's Batman's run is one of my favorites, and there's that series he did, R.I.P. And in that series, there's a spot where like he's talking about how he's trained himself to breathe so slowly, to measure his heart rate, to slow it down, and to like focus on this and that, and doing X amount of push-ups and all this stuff, and going through certain situations. And he's like, it's hard but not impossible. And he's at that moment, he's like buried underground in a coffin, and there's dirt all on top of him. And he's talking about having to bench press a coffin through wet mud, with torn, dehydrated muscles and like a broken rib. And he's like, it's hard. And then you see him emerge out of that, that pit of the coffin and dirt. And he's like, but not impossible. And it's one of those things that's always carried me through, times that everything can feel really hard. And if you feel like you could give up, and you feel like you're going to break, and you feel like it's just almost senseless to go on, but to go on is hard but not impossible. And you continue to show that and prove that as you continue to move through life and an artistic career. Because I'm sure like all of us know, making comics isn't easy. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. How has it been for you making your stories? And do you ever feel like discouraged, or that these obstacles are kind of too heavy for you to like continue making them? Or is like comics kind of just working out, and it's something that you feel like you could consistently go back to find that happiness and, inspiration to keep on going all the time.
Yeah, there have definitely been times where I've been like discouraged a little bit, where I see that like the comics not really doing all that well, or the time it takes to actually find someone who can, you know, bring the comic to life. Because as I've said, I'm actually just the writer. I don't
Hmm.
draw. So I knew making the comic, I would have to find someone to do the illustrations. And that was a difficult process. And then once the book came out, and I started getting, some traction, some sales. And then there was this point where it just kind of felt like everything was starting to like slow down and come down. So yeah, so that
Mm.
was a bit difficult. But in the end, I've never considered the idea of stopping with the comics. I just have too much belief and too much faith to do that, because it's something I've been doing, my entire life. So I can't even imagine like stopping to do this. I mean, stopping this. So yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah,
dude,
there have been
honestly.
some rough patches, but of course that's like it with every project. So
No, that's very true, and it's a great way to look at it too, because when you launch a book, and I think a lot of people forget about this sometimes, is that you know the beginning is always very fruitful. You know what I mean? It feels very accomplishing. A lot of people are looking at it. It's fresh. It's new. It's something that you've achieved, and so a lot of people are anxiously waiting for it. And you kind of have that uplift for so long, but when things do start to slow down and kind of have a halt at a certain point, it does feel kind of detrimental. Like it not that it's ending, but it's just like, how do I reinvent this? How do I reignite it? How do I keep on going? And marketing only does so much after a book, after you've promoted it for so long. And it's good that you continue to promote it even long after the release, because it's still a prideful thing you've worked on, and you've taken a lot of time and effort to put it together. Like, you should always continue promoting your work, but that slump can really, like, hurt, and you do feel it sometimes, for sure, whether you're kickstarting or just having it up on a regular store. It is kind of like, okay, how do I bring back interest to this? How do I find new fans and find a new audience? um do you feel like finding a new audience is more the answer for you, or is it just producing more work as you can with other people to try to keep that fire going?
yeah, well, I have tried. Yeah, when it comes to like promoting, I have tried to like look for different audiences, get my comic book in front of people who, of course, may not necessarily be fans of
Hmm.
it or like my genre, but still like trying to figure out a way to bring them in. Because I remember one of the things my dad told me is, when it comes to like Marvel films or like comic book films, the producers and like the promoters of the films, they're not really going for like the comic book fans, because they know they already have those. What they're going for is the people who might not be interested in comics, or maybe don't even read comics. Like, how do we draw in like
Hmm.
those eyes too? Because if we can draw those people in, we can have an even like bigger audience, and it could be more successful. So I've taken like those words and like tried to broaden my audience, because even if I can get like someone who's like not necessarily a fan of what the genre Reese Rabbit is, to look at it and pick it up and say, hey, this looks interesting, like,
Hmm.
because even that could just lead to like, what, I may not be a fan of this, but you know what, so and so who I know, they would definitely like something like this, so let me tell them about it. So
That's a great approach of it too, because You're right. Their approach to things is every comic fan knows about these characters, and and we all like jump at these movies and these Marvel TV shows, and sometimes the comic book fans are a bit too analytical in how it's gonna turn out, or just by previews and whatnot. But by capturing the audience that you're just like know that aren't even like really remotely interested, but trying to find a way to get them interested and get them hooked, that's such a great barrier to break. Comic people are always going to kind of support comic book projects and whatnot, whether it's like within their realm or not, most likely too. But like going outside of that and thinking outside of what a typical comic book reader may be looking for, and look at what just an average book reader or like entertainment seeker may be looking for, that's where you're going to bring in that new like insight and that new welcoming. Um, and also, like what you're saying, showing people a book and seeing maybe it's not for you, but take a look because it could be for someone else. Dude, another way to open up an audience spectrum. The act of, gift giving is such a pivotal thing. And I think a lot of people are realizing that too. Like, just because you're not into this type of book doesn't mean that someone else won't be. And, it happens all the time with novels and TV shows where they're like, oh, it's not my thing, but so and so will really like it. But comic books, it seems like, oh, it's not my thing. I'm just not going to, bother with it. Instead of being a bit more open to what is inside of that too. Do you feel like there's been like almost a wall you've had to work through because your series is kind of a bit different? It's not exactly like on that superhero genre. It's not like some sort of action adventure crime fighting thing. It's a bit more playful and fun and like Looney Tunes vibe, just by appearance. Do you think it's been harder to find an accurate audience for your book?
Yeah, a little bit. Because I know that when I originally came up with Reese Rabbit, I had always intended for it to be sort of like this playful, like kind of aimed towards like children kind vibe. Like you can
Hmm.
see like kids reading and watching it. Um, Instead of like, the real popular, like the action, the superheroes and such. So yeah, sometimes that can be a challenge for me, finding the right audience for that. But of course, I keep, going, keep trying like, different things, and yeah, to see what works out. And
Yeah, it's kind of what you got to do. Just keep on experimenting and seeing what works best too. And what do you like story wise too? Do you have a lot built up inside you that you're also trying to get down, or do you have anything else in the works right now that you're putting together?
oh yeah, right now I have another series which is kind of more lean towards like the action, kind of like sci-fi type thing,
Oh, cool.
called World of Hearts.
Ooh.
And just a brief rundown, it's a story about two brothers who live in a post apocalyptic world. But the thing is, nobody who's currently alive in this post apocalyptic world knows how the apocalypse happened. They just refer to it as the occurrence, but nobody actually knows what happened. Because when I was making the story and I decided to go with like the post apocalyptic world, originally it was going to be like, the nuclear war and all that. But in the end, I decided, because, that's been done before, a lot. And
Hmm.
not to knock those stories, but I wanted to do something different. But I was having like a lot of trouble trying to figure out like, okay, so what causes the apocalypse? And then I just came up with the idea of, okay, what if just people don't know? Like I can't figure it out. What if they can't figure it out either? So yeah. So
I love
that's
that.
in the work. Yeah, that's in the works right now. I've got like the cover for it, but as far as like the actual like illustrations and like the whole book, because the story's written, but I'm decided to tweak it a little bit because I've had some new ideas, but I've got the cover, and once the story's like I feel satisfied with the story, I'll get to because I'm actually working with the same artist who I did Reese
Oh,
Rabbit with.
cool.
And also, again, to give her credit because the cover and the illustrations, because I intend for this series to be a little bit more adult, like named
Hmm.
for like young adults and stuff like that, than Reese Rabbit. So I really gotta give her credit for her ability to like switch like genres and like styles because she really did a good job, even though it's just a cover, but she really did a good job on that. And
Well, also establishing that like collaboration and that, workflow aspect of it too. Because once you kind of get in a good habit with an artist, they understand your scripts a bit more, how you function, how you work, your way of thinking. Is that another reason why you're really excited to continue process with this same illustrator rather than moving to a new project with a new team at that point as well?
oh yes, definitely. I enjoyed working with her with Reese Rabbit. I do believe she made the process like really easy. There wasn't too much like hard like ships going on or too many
Hmm.
bumps along the road. Um, the only like big thing was just like the scheduling, like trying to figure out like when to collaborate and when like we could like come together and work things out. That was a bit of a hurdle. But other than that, I really thoroughly enjoyed working with her, and I know I'll enjoy working with her, on this next book and continued books that I have.
Brad, dude, that's so exciting too. And it's cool that you're already having like a level up coming up after your first release too, like you set something up. And are you planning more feature issues for Reese Rabbit as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I've been working on Reese Rabbit since I told you about that Florida trip. So I have like
Mm.
tons of stories, tons of like scripts written. It's just a matter of bringing them to life. Which let me just say, as a writer, that's always one of the greatest things, like the greatest feelings when you have something written and you have it like brought to life, whether it's like a script and it gets turned into a comic or a script that gets turned into a film and you actually see it. And yeah, it's like almost like nothing beats like that feeling as a writer seeing it brought to life. Yeah.
Yeah, and then being able to like hold it in your hands and like, see somebody walk away with it whenever you're tabling or just promoting or doing any of that. That's super exciting. And it's one of the best, I don't think people realize like, especially if you haven't done your first book yet, what that does for you mentally and how that makes everything so achievable after that. Like, you've done it once and now you know what you can do better and how you could do things even more efficiently or change things up a bit and challenge yourself at the same time. Your first book is such a pivotal milestone on like hard lessons, I think. And then it starts to get more streamlined more and more and more after that. Do you feel like your confidence level going into this new series is even higher than when you started Reese Rabbit with how you're putting it together and what you're considering that's within it and whatnot?
Oh, and yeah, because with Reese Rabbit being my first book, I knew that there was a lot of things I would have to figure out. And now that I figured out those things, now I have like a schedule and someone to work with and a place to distribute it. Now that I know I have access to all those things that it takes to make a book and bring it and publish it, yeah, I know it will be easier this next time. Next time around, because I know when I was first starting with Reese Rabbit, I knew that like finding an artist that was just going to be like the first step. I knew after I would need like find somewhere to publish it and then find tools and ways to promote it. And yeah, so that was a thought process. But now that I know that, I think next time around it's going to be, a bit easier.
Nice. Yeah. And that's, again, it's all learning lessons. When I did my first book, I was just kind of baffled and lost and trying to figure it out pretty much daily as I was going and hoping for the best. And especially when you're a writer beginning, trying to find an artist that, works with you and that, you start a friendship or, a partnership with, and it continues to flourish and grow. And you guys are both, excited for the book, and it's not just like a money aspect too, you know what I mean? Where you're both excited to collaborate and add to the story and see it come to life is probably most one of the most rewarding aspects of making comics. Whatever like deal goes on to like between you two to make sure it happens, that's always like a case by case scenario, but just finding that other creator to collaborate with and see your vision and understand it well enough to bring it to life, and sometimes it surpasses your own expectations and vision of what you had written down. It's a very rewarding feeling, and it's something that like continues to happen all the time as we continue making comics. What's your script, outline kind of like? How do you approach your scripts, and what do you like take in consideration as you work through them?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to Reese Rabbit, I know that when I had written the script, it was just a basic like TV script because originally I had thought about having this be like a TV show, kind of like one of the frameworks for it was SpongeBob SquarePants, kind of like imagine it like a show like that.
Hmm.
And so I just wrote the TV script for it. And then when I decided to make it a comic book, I switched it up a little bit because I had never like written a comic book script before. So um, I used a final draft and I was able to take my TV script and kind of like morph it into more like a comic book script.
Hmm.
And then I was able to get the script in front of my artist, Ingrid, and together we worked together to make the pages, like which panels and which we wanted on each page. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it went down. As far as like the process goes, I just, because I had been already like writing scripts for a while. And
Cool.
by that point, I think it was a couple years ago, I decided to rewrite the Reese Rabbit script because I already had um, like an original version, but it was one that I had written a long time ago before I had like known the format
Mhm.
for like how to write like an actual script. So I just like redid it and just went from there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider when you're like, especially changing from one medium to another, like, especially with movement and what can happen in one panel versus what you could have happen in a scene when you're describing it. And especially in animation or live action scripts, like the contrast that's going on between comics and almost any other type of script. Comics are very tight and, single moment, single frame, beat by beat type of things, and but you're also able to jump around a little bit more and have some fluidity between time as you're going through panels too. So I know there's like a lot to like kind of pull back on and expand upon when you're switching mediums like that. Do you think that was like do you think comics turned out to be the best place for your series, or would you still try to attempt to do some sort of animation aspect to really give it the original vision and feel that you had for it?
Yeah, I think one day I probably will try to like make it into like the animated like series that I like envisioned it to be, because I know that when you envision something as like something, um that's when like what you imagine can like really come together. Like if you imagine a film and but instead you like get like a book or like a TV show, with it being different mediums, sometimes you can't really get everything that you had like envisioned it to be.
Hmm.
But with that medium that you originally intended, um, that can like sometimes be like everything you can get everything you want. But of course, I do. Sometimes it's the other way around, where sometimes with a different medium, you can sometimes get things that you didn't expect, but you also think is good or like even better, even. And I do think it was the case with Reese Rabbit. I know I intended it to be like an animated like TV show series, but with the comic book, there were things in there that were brought into it that I never really would have expected, and I do like appreciate that a lot. Yeah.
That's cool. Those surprises are always very rewarding too. The outcome being different from what you kind of envisioned in your head is typically a lot better than what you would have probably ever hoped for as well. And that's really exciting. You're kind of going through all those motions and realizing so much of that, especially just by pushing out like essentially your first book, your first series that you're working on right now. And it seems like it's going to be setting you up for success along your comic book making journey, because it sounds like you started early, which is awesome. I love hearing from younger comic book creators and seeing what they're up to, how they're working their craft, and what they're building upon, because it's such a tedious craft, and it's such a difficult craft to kind of get going and find traction and like have hope in, and really just like know that you can make it, because so many people do try to make comics and don't end up making them for whatever reason, for whatever outcome. But like sticking through it and going through the end and at least putting a book out there, it's a major milestone, it's a major achievement, and it's something that not everyone gets to celebrate. But as you're learning these lessons now, I can't wait to see what your books are going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how your craft is going to continue to grow, since you're already analyzing such excellent sources. Um, is comics basically like going to be your main focus? Are there other mediums that like you do want to like really just kind of pour yourself into, or is comics really like your main, source of pretty much everything at this point that you want to focus on?
Um, Comics is my focus at like this point, but I do know that eventually I would like to venture into other mediums like TV, films, and even like regular books or like novels, I should say. But for the most part, my main thing has been comic books, and that's will be my focus. And even though I do have, like I said earlier, I do have scripts, like actual scripts for like movies and TV shows. And if I get the opportunity to like bring those to life, like yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
But for the time being, I would like to focus, on my comic books, like Reese Rabbit and the World of Hearts I told you about, and some other like stories I have that, like Reese Rabbit, they didn't like start off being for comics, but I do think having learned what I did from Reese Rabbit, I do think that they would actually make good comic books. So I'm
Oh, cool.
hopefully good to put those together one day. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you could launch something in a comic book medium, because you're already having connections and growth in there, and then it could transpire into something bigger. And it seems like you have the aptitude and the drive and want to be able to do that too. I mean, I would love to see how Reese Rabbit like continues to evolve and change and grow as you continue working on them. And especially with this other series, it looks like you're taking your lessons from one aspect and growing upon them, and taking that action and that feedback and implementing them. Do you ever look towards crowdfunding to make sure your books get like printed or stuff like that, or are you just doing everything independently at your point too?
At this point, I've done everything independently.
Cool.
I have um, tried and looked into crowdfunding, like the Kickstarter and the GoFundMe things, but I haven't really put like all like really a lot of effort into that yet.
Mhm.
Because I wanted to like see how this first book with Reese Rabbit did, and to like expand my fan base with that. So yeah, but I'm sure like going down the road, I will like start doing like the crowdfunding and getting more people to like support what I'm doing.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I'm super excited to see your journey and see where you're going from here. That's super cool because crowdfunding, it's very beneficial, but at the same time, like it is a lot to take on. And if you're not ready to take on that beast and things are working out in the process that you're doing it in right now, then that's the best way you could go about it too. Because the amount of work and the strides you have to cross to like make sure your crowdfunding is successful and you do well, and you don't destroy yourself over it, and over obsess over numbers and performance. It's a lot of just tedious work from the beginning when you're prepping it to the end of the campaign, and then to fulfillment even after that. So yeah, definitely pacing it to where you feel comfortable as a creator. And I think a lot of creators need to know that too, that not every book needs to get crowdfunded, and that you do need to work on your own pace and your own working pace as well, because that's a very difficult thing to kind of find balance within. Super rad, Hunter. Dude, I'm so proud of you and everything that you're doing right now. And seeing your book actually out there and seeing and hearing about your future projects. Why don't you tell us all like where we could find you, where we could find your works, and what you're going to be up to for the rest of the year for us to keep an eye out for?
Yeah. So you can find me you can find the Reese Rabbit, The Adventures of Reese Rabbit, issue number one at the cwsbookstore.com. As far as me, my Instagram, it's the right one on Instagram. Mm. And so yeah, and I'll leave you with this. There's a quote that actually got off Twitter that really resonated with me. I forgot. I really wish I had saved it, but because I forgot where it was from. But um, he asked the question for writers: would you rather have everyone know your characters but not know who you are, or have everyone know who you are but not know your characters? And pretty much everyone who responded, myself included, said we would rather have everyone know our characters than us. And I definitely would rather have everyone know who my characters were than me, because for one thing, I kind of feel like since I created them and they came from like my imagination, my head, they're kind of like an extension of myself. So
Hmm.
in a way, you kind of do know who I am. So if I could have everyone know who Reese Rabbit is, but not know who Hunter Reese is, I could I could definitely live with that. I would be happy with that. Yeah.
I love that because we pour so much of ourselves into every character we create, pretty much, and having that be a reflection of like who you are and how you feel and think. It's the best, most optimal way. And we talk about it a lot here, how we put a lot of our energy and ourselves into our comics. And I love knowing that, like I'd agree with that too. I'd rather people see my characters and understand them and resonate with them and, worry about them and not me so much, because they're just a partial reflection of who I am and what I poured into it. And don't worry about me, but worry about the cool stuff we're producing and putting out there. It's great
Mhm.
stuff to go by, Hunter. Love it. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on the show and everything you're doing for comics and indie comics. It shows like what you can do when you put your mind and effort into something, and that it's never too early to start and it's never too late to start with indie comics. And that's what people need to remember. It's just taking the action and making comics and putting the time aside to work on your craft. And it seems like that's exactly what you're doing yourself. And for all of our listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We have 2 episodes coming out every single week. We are leading into some great cons into this year that we'll be announcing very soon. And as always, thanks for hanging. Stay creative and stay inspired. Looking for high quality printing, fast turnaround, and the industry's best customer service? Look no further than Comics Wellspring. Trusted by thousands of indie comic creators, Comics Wellspring is proven to be the go to comic book printer. So when you're ready to bring your comic books to life, go to comicswellspring.com and be sure to check out one of the best platforms to sell your physical and digital comics online, the CWS Bookstore. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell to see our lives come out twice every single week on YouTube and podcast platforms. And also tag us when you share your favorite episodes and moments from the show. And remember, creators, thanks for hanging, keep creating, and stay inspired.